Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina wa Habibina Ibn Abdullah wa ala alihi wa tayyibina wa tahirina wa sahabatihi wa man tabi'um bi ihsan ila yawmiddin. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika an azilla uzal aw azilla uzal aw azlim aw uzlam aw ajhal aw yujhal alayya. I seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I should go astray or be led astray, or that I trip or be tripped, or that I oppress or be oppressed, or I be ignorant or ignorance be done to me. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. O my Rabb, open my chest, ease my trust for me, and remove the impediments from my speech so that they may understand what I say. Tonight is the 29th of Safar, 1437 years after Hijrah. We were at ayat number 275 of Surah Al-Baqarah, and that's we just gave you a kind of an introduction to this ayah. And tonight we're going to look at this ayah and the subsequent ayahs. And what we will also look at is a compilation of all the ayahs where riba has been mentioned in Quran, starting from Surah Rum and then concluding on to these last ayahs in Surah Al-Baqarah. So let's just do this ayah first, although we did a bit of introduction, but I'm just going to translate this and follow this through. So, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alladhina yaquluna riba la yaqumuna illa kama yaqumu alladhi yatakhabbathu ash-shaytanu min al-mas. Dhalika bi annahum qalu innamal bay'u mislu riba wa halallahu al-bay' wa harrama ar-riba faman jaa mu'izatan min rabbih fantaha falahu ma salaf wa amruhu ila Allah wa man aada fa ulaika ashabun nar hum fiha khalidun. So those who devour riba or those who eat riba will not stand up except stand someone whom shaitan has maddened by his touch. That is because they say trading is also like riba, but Allah has permitted trading and He has forbidden riba. So whoever receives a warning or whoever receives an advice from his Rabb and stops, he is allowed what has happened before, and their cases with Allah to judge. But whoever repents or whoever repeats, they are the companions of fire and they shall abide in it forever. So there are 6 verses relating to riba in Quran. This is one of them, and this ayah states the kind of a tragic end for those people who indulge in riba-based transactions. So it describes the kind of a disheveled and a bit disgraced state that they will find themselves on the day of resurrection when they are in front of their Rabb. This ayat almost making it clear that one who takes interest or gives interest is like a person who has been maddened by the shaitan or a madman, because he's really not concerned about the welfare of other people. Now, the crime that they are being stated over here, that is because they say, I think this is the important part, ذَلِكَ بِأَنُّهُمْ قَالُوا إِنَّمَا الْبَيْعُ مِثْلُ الرِّبَا. They say these are the same things. Whether you make profit by buying and selling, or whether you make profit by giving money to someone, they are the same things. I think this is not something that was said 1400 years ago. It was said 1400 years. Even today, a lot of people have huge sort of challenges when they talk of the Islamic financial transactions, and they say it almost looks the same. The Islamic banking or Islamic financial transactions and conventional transactions look the same, because in both cases someone is making a profit. The ways are slightly more defined. So the question of making a profit through trade or through an interest-based transaction, they say is the same thing, because it's a cost of capital or the cost of risk that has been there, which is in form of interest. But Allah makes it very clear over here, وَحَلَّ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا, and Allah has not really given any wisdom as to why He has done one and prohibited one and allowed the other. I think this is the important point, that Allah is the creator, He is the one who has made the laws, and He doesn't give the wisdom why this law has been there, but He just mentions over here وَحَلَّ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا, that Allah has permitted trading and He has forbidden riba. So He is the sovereign master, He is the absolute master, and He alone knows the harm and benefit and good and bad of everything. So He has permitted trading. And then He has also mentioned فَمَنْ جَاءَهُ مُوعِظَةً مِنْ رَبِّهِ فَانْتَهَى فَلَهُ مَا سَلَفَ وَأَمْرُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ, that someone who has already done this in his life, Allah says that Allah's advice to them is to stop, And then what has happened is happened. Their case is with Allah. Allah has not said I'm forgiving them, but Allah says that their case is with Allah to judge. And I think this is the reason why, I mean, all of us at some point in time have been involved with riba to a certain degree or the other. So it's important that we ask Allah for forgiveness for that, because there are certain sins which can only be forgiven if one sincerely asks Allah for forgiveness, and one of them is obviously indulging in riba. But then Allah also makes it clear over here, وَمَنْ آدَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ النَّارِ هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. For those who repeat, they are the companions of fire. Not only they are companions of fire, but it makes it clear over here, they shall abide in it forever, that they will be, it's a warning for an everlasting problem that they have chosen for themselves. So this is the first ayat, and the next ayat, which is ayat number 276, is also speaking or talking of riba. يَمْحَقُ اللَّهُ الرِّبَا وَيُرْبِ الصَّدَقَاتِ وَاللَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ كُلَّ كَفَّارٍ أَثِيمٍ. And Allah deprives riba of blessing and blesses charity with increase, and Allah does not love any ungrateful sinner. So time and again we see that one of the messages that comes in, that Allah is, I mean, probably more concerned about us than we are, and He wants all of us to be in paradise, and He says that He has taken away the blessing of riba, and He has given the blessing in charity, and He does not love the ungrateful sinner, which means someone who indulges in this is also in a way an ungrateful person. So Allah would erase the sins and increase the blessings if people stop indulging in riba. So one of the points I think you will see over here is that this prohibition of riba, and we will see in the subsequent ayahs, the prohibition came very slowly. The first hukum that came in was in Surah Rum, which I'm going to also show you on the screen now after this ayah, came in, which was probably in the late maybe about the 8th year of Nabuwat. So these ayahs were revealed almost like at the end of the life of our Prophet, so maybe around 12 years after his hijrat. So almost like it took 14 years for riba to be completely abolished. So this shows the gradual way in which Quran prepares the ground and minds of people so that the change can come about. If Allah wanted, He could have made riba, disallowed riba right from the beginning, but it wasn't. For a long period of time it was permitted till the very last, among the last ayah, that it was, the hukum came that it is completely disallowed. The same is for alcohol. Alcohol also, prohibition came in over a gradual period, over a period of time, because I think the reason for that is that Quran recognizes that it's dealing with human beings, and to change human beings is a long and a slow process. Any people, and we've seen people also change over a long period of time. So these gradual hukum that were coming in, encouraging people to think about it and also to keep in mind their hereafter in mind as they really move into that. What also this ayat makes clear in the beginning, that Allah deprives riba of its blessings, that while people may save and take riba on it or interest on it, but the fact is that there will be no blessing of Allah, there will be no barakat inside it. Sometimes it's hard for us to understand what barakat means, because we are concerned more on the quantity of things, how much wealth I have, how much money I have saved, not realizing that it's not the question of how much, but sometimes people have very little, but the barakat Allah puts on it is so much that it goes a long way. And sometimes people have lots of thing and lot of wealth, but it does not actually give them the peace of mind, and it gets lost in the process due to some accident or some unforeseen things taking away. So increase in wealth because of riba should not be really regarded as something which is good. It's like somebody who's who eats something and his body bloats up, it just becomes really fat. It's not a sign of being healthy. That's not a sign of being healthy. Yes, the body has increased, but that doesn't mean that the person has become healthy. And the same is true for riba, because if Allah takes away the blessing of riba, takes away the blessing from the wealth because of riba, then the fact is it's just it just adds to more misery. And I think we've seen many times where people do become millionaires, and then after millionaires, they suddenly become insolvent and bankrupt. I think in modern world that we are living in, day to day, you will see people going from nowhere to becoming a millionaire, and then that suddenly in the next day or so, they would suddenly lose all their wealth. And I think often it happens, we see that. And one of the reasons is that especially when people take a large amount of interest-based loans, and we saw that in case of the 2008 financial crisis, people were billionaires, literally billionaires, and they committed suicide because of the fact that when they had a huge portfolio of stocks, and those portfolio they were against a margin, which means that they had taken loans against that portfolio, and once the portfolio started to fall below a certain price, the bank started to call in the portfolio and encash it, and as a result, while they were very rich one day, the very next day they seemed to have lost everything. And this is what leveraging does. I mean, this is what you call leveraging in financial transaction, where people have a certain capital and they borrow from the banks to leverage it, increase, because that leveraging gives them better profit. But when the chips are down and the markets are collapsing, that leveraging can be really a very dangerous thing. Also, the fact that just because our wealth is increasing, that doesn't mean our well-being is increasing. We have this misconception that it is the money which is giving us peace and comfort and a pleasant life. We have to understand this very carefully, that money or gold or silver, these are just means for us to procure things. They cannot give comfort to anyone. There's no comfort itself in money, because you may have all the money in your pocket, you may have tons of gold, but if you're in the middle of a desert where there is nothing available, that money or gold is of no value. It cannot even buy you one glass of water which you may need. So by itself, gold, silver, money are means through which we can procure things, and these things are supposed to make man life pleasant, and make him live in a comfortable and sort of a tranquil life. But often that does not happen. So what we see is, what our perception is when we see someone who is working in a conventional bank and he's living a very good life and his lifestyle and the comfort of his home, and he has servants and he has a beautiful home and he has he has good food and good drinks, we begin to feel that he has a very good and a comfortable life. But that may not necessarily be true, because he may be living a dreadful life despite the fact that he has all these comforts over there. I think what we have to also differentiate is that there's a difference between articles of comfort and comfort itself. Articles of comfort is something that are made in a factory and that we can purchase from the market. These is what's called articles of comfort: a home, a carpet, a car, or whatever, a refrigerator, or air conditioner. These are articles of comfort. They are sold in the market, they can be bought and they can be purchased. But peace and bliss, and this is neither made in a factory nor it is sold in a market. The comfort of your heart, the peace of your heart is not really sold in a market. And I think a lot of us know that. We probably will be knowing people who live in very comfortable homes. They have very comfortable beds, they have heating and cooling and a good mattress and a good pillow, but they cannot sleep because of the fact that their mind is so worried, or their hearts are not at rest. There is no peace in their hearts, so therefore they have to keep taking various sleeping pills in order to sleep, because they cannot get natural sleep. And when you look at Quran says the only way you will get peace in your heart is through the zikr of Allah. And one of the names of Quran is zikra, one of the names. So, Allah bi zikrillahi tatma'innul qulub, verily in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. So this peace and rest is not there in the material things. Material things are obviously they are there for our comfort, but that doesn't mean that it will give us the peace that we are looking for, and that only comes in with the zikr of Allah. And many times you will come across people who may be financially not very well off, but they're very peaceful people. You can see it written on their face. They're extremely peaceful people, and the reason for that is that while they may not have articles of comfort, but they have a peaceful heart. In fact, there is a hadith which is from Musnad Ahmad and Ibn Majah, where our Prophet ﷺ said, no matter how much riba increases, it will decrease ultimately. So what is really decreasing is the peace that you are going to be having. Maybe there is a lot of comfort, but there is no real peace over here. Now, please remember that this prohibition of riba, which is disallowed in Islam in very strong words, it's equally disallowed in other religions also. Even if you look at the early Greek history, I just was looking at one of the books about early Greek history, and it said the bulk of the population became gradually indebted to the rich to such an extent that they were practically slaves. So even in the early Greek societies, the difference between rich and poor became so much that the rich were constantly giving money to the poor on interest, and as a result all the power was with them, and there was this huge problem over there. If you look at Bible, which is the Old Testament as well as the New Testament, both in Christianity as well as in Judaism, you would find that there are specific injunctions which prohibit people from taking interest. In fact, in Talmud, which is the main Sharia book for the Jews, the money lender is compared to a murderer. They have the same. So someone who lends money is equivalent to a murderer. And this you can see from their many of the books, including the book of Exodus and book of Deuteronomy, which forbids people from taking usury transaction. Now let's just look at the other places in Quran where riba is mentioned. The first hukum, like I said, was Surah Rum, and that's ayat number 39 of Surah Rum, which is on the next slide. وَمَا آتَيْتُم مِّن رِبَا لِيَرْبُوا فِي أَمْوَالِ النَّاسِ وَلَا يَرْبُوا عِندَ اللَّهِ وَمَا آتَيْتُم مِّن زَكَاةٍ تُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَ اللَّهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُضْعِفُونَ. And the interest which they give to increase the wealth of people will have no increase with Allah, but that which they lay out for charity seeking Allah's favor, He will increase, and it is these who will get recompense multiplied. So this is the first hukum that came in Surah Rum, ayat number 30. Like I said, Surah Rum is a Makkan ayah, and that's the first time we see a reference onto riba. The next hukum that came in, the second revelation on the subject of riba, came in Surah Nisa, which is ayat number 161 of Surah Nisa. فَبِظُلْمٍ مِّنَ الَّذِينَ هَادُوا حَرَّمْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ طَيِّبَاتٍ أُحِلَّتْ لَهُمْ وَبِصَدِّهِمْ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ كَثِيرًا. Because of their abuse, we forbade the Jews good things which were formerly allowed to them, because time after time they debarred others from the paths of Allah, says they practiced riba although they were forbidden, and cheated others of their possession, and we have prepared a painful torment for the disbelievers. So this is the kind of humiliation and suffering which the Jews had to undergo throughout the recorded history because of their indulgence in riba. And if you look at the history of modern banking, which really is the Makkah for riba-based transaction, the introduction of that was also done by Jews, and they controlled it for a very long period of time. And what they said was that Jew cannot take interest from each other, but they can take interest from the Gentiles, from other people, and that's the reason why they had this modern banking being there. Now the third hukum which came for riba is in Surah Al Imran, which is ayat number 30, and it says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu la taqulu riba at'afa muzafa wattaqullah la'allakum tuflihun. O you believe, do not eat riba or do not devour riba, doubling its rate many times, and fear Allah so that you may prosper. This is the third hukum. And what this hukum is telling us is this human tendency of multiplying wealth through any means, especially when you have this compounding interest, because the moment we develop this liking for interest, then obviously we will increasingly indulge in it. We will not be interested in simple interest, but we will also be interested in compounding that. What compounding is, that suppose you take a loan maybe at a 10% interest rate, and you get interest every month. What you want is that on that unused interest portion also you get further interest. That's what compounding is all about. So this hukum says that you should not double its rate many times and fear Allah. So this doubling or redoubling of interest over here is to basically highlight the shameful aspect of compounding interest, but it does not really limit the scope of riba only to compound interest. It doesn't mean simple interest is permitted. It's like saying, like zina is disallowed, zina bil jabr is absolutely disallowed. Zina outside is disallowed. In a mosque, it's a much worse problem. In Kaaba, it's really a horrendous sin. The same sin, the value of that continues to increase depending on how it is committed, where it is committed, the time it is committed, with whom it is committed. Same is with interest, that while simple interest is disallowed, compounding is really worse. It's a really a worse situation for that. So it doesn't really mean that, because a lot of people quote this ayat, and they say that because of this ayat of Surah Al Imran, only compound interest is disallowed, but simple interest is something that is permitted. This is really an exception, because I have not really seen any hadith which supports this fact. This actually states that someone who indulges in simple interest, ultimately he will indulge in compounding of interest. And like I maybe mentioned to you yesterday, compounding is the biggest Scrooge these days. It's just the compounding of interest. That's every time you get an interest and interest on interest. The other day, I have a credit card of a bank over here, Standard Chartered, and I phoned them up for some other reason. I don't really ever use the facility of trying to not pay on time, but sometimes you need these credit cards for your phones and your bills, etc., or your travel. So I phoned them up for some reason, and they said, look, you have been a client with us for a long time. We want to offer you a cash, if you want a cash loan, we can give you a cash loan of so much amount. All you have to do is pay 2% per month for it, which is the interest charge. So I said, 2% per month? If I were to compound that 2% per month, it will nearly be, if you look at the IRR of that transaction, the internal rate of return, it would be somewhere around 36% or probably even more. So I said, in a country where the interest rates are 6%, you're charging people 36% for this? If this is not usury, what else is usury? But often people, because of the fact that they need money, they have a cash requirement, they have a credit card, it's a very easy source. You go to an ATM, you draw out the cash that is there. Now once they have done that, then it's a huge problem, because people then keep paying the minimum balance on it, and on the unpaid balance they are paying something like 36 or even more, 36 or 38% profit that they will be paying. And this exactly is the same thing. Sometimes a simple interest is there, but then it becomes compounded, and after that you will be, people will be paying off compounded interest, and as a result they will never come out of the debt burden. Not only it is people, individual, but even nations sometimes get caught in the cycle of taking too much debt, because when nations take debt which is on interest base, they use it as if this is free money. They are never really careful. They use it as if it's free money, and then from generations after generation, all they are doing is that they are actually surrendering the freedom of that nation to these institutions who have given them money on interest rates, which initially are small. Initially the interest rate will be low, but if you don't pay on time, these interest rates become compounded, and then there are various penalties, and people can never pay them back. The reason why if you look at the Islamic history, the Turkish Khilafat finished, and this is a fact. The reason of that was because the banks in Europe knew at that time Turkey has no ability to be able to pay back the loans that were being given to them. Yet they went in and gave them huge amount of loans for setting up the railway and for other things, knowing that this loan will never come back. And when the loan was defaulted, all these European nations stepped in, and then they said, okay, now any trade that goes out of Turkey has to go through us. You will only buy things through our companies, and they started to charge exorbitant profit onto the goods that were coming into Turkey, and anything that was going on was being sold at their price, picked up at a very cheap rate, and as a result Turkey had its financial problem for a very long period of time. And this is the reason why Islam has so strongly discouraged this indulgence in riba. Sometimes people think that this is just a small problem. It isn't really a small problem. It's a very complex problem, and it has far-reaching effects, and we see this happening every decade or so. You will see the economic crashes that will be taking place. A lot of people who are billionaires, they would tend to lose everything in these economic crises, and then as a result we come back again. And the difference between the rich and poor in the world today has never been so sharp as it is. The top 1% in USA would be controlling almost like 66 or to 80% of the total wealth of the country. And this is not just in the United States, but across the world. The rich are phenomenally rich because of the fact that they are, once you have a certain threshold of money available, then the compounding starts to kick in and you will continue to increase that wealth without taking any risk. No risk taken, the wealth will continue to multiply. And I think this is a huge challenge, and as a result, 1437 years from today, Islam understood this. And so therefore the hukum that came in was so balanced, I mean, it's not about destroying the banks. I'm really not saying that. What we really need to do is take the element of debt-based financing away from the conventional banking transaction. That's where the issue is. If money is being used to create wealth in the society, if it's creating wealth in the society, it is fine. And so any Islamic financial transaction, the underlying principle of that transaction, the ayat that we saw in